and welcome to Our Time. Our guest this week is famously known on radio and podcasts as the Tech Guy, and he's here with some timely advice. Hello, Richard Pascoe.
Hello, Malcolm. Lovely to be back. The restraining order's over now.
Yes, it is. It's been like 8 years or something.
Yes, it has.
A very long time.
Yeah.
And so much has changed in the technical stuff.
It has.
Tech Guy, of course, for you refers to all of the things that we now have to have, like mobile phones, like computers, like websites, like email
tablets,
addresses, and
social media.
All of those things. But what's interesting is, whilst you have a background in that, you also have a background in radio, because regularly you're on radio.
I am. It all started about 13 years ago, and I was at a dinner with Amanda Blair and Monique Bowley, and it went round the table and said, "What do you do?" And it came to me, and I said, "Well, I've got a business called the Adelaide Tech Guy. I can answer pretty well any question on Windows, Apple, TV, smartphones, tablets. They would love to have you on the radio." Went on next week, said I can answer any question. Amanda opened up the phone lines. Whoosh, and they all came in, and that was it. And
I can understand that.
It progressed from there. So what happened is, basically about 6 months later, 5MU came on board, and I was doing a segment with Jeff Sunderland. Power FM came on board, and then we expanded into Tasmania. I've been on Queensland radio, WA, New South Wales. Then I started spots on channels.
National.
National. There we go.
National.
Yes.
Brilliant. But now you do more than that on radio.
I do. I've got a segment, a pretty regular segment on 5AA in Adelaide on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, or public holidays, where I do a segment 3 to 4 hours and I talk about anything. So,
well, that's how we caught up again, because I was talking about anything and came on your show and had a chat. It was lovely.
Thank you.
See, radio has changed so much from what it used to be, because these days, usually there's only one person operating almost everything.
Yes.
So there used to be operators and producers and people doing stuff whilst you have a producer. But it's amazing how quickly the technology has changed in all broadcast media.
It is, because it's instant now.
Very.
And that's what listeners want. And I try and produce on a weekend, when you listen to me, it's like a magazine style show.
Yeah.
So like you come on, and then we've got a naturopath who comes on.
Yeah.
We talk to a doctor. So we try and make them all interesting. And you can ring me up and ask me a question, or you can come along and have an argument with me, which is always good fun.
What's the worst you've had?
We can't put that to air, Malcolm.
Oh, okay.
Saying yes, it is that, but because we had to dump some people.
Do you have a dump button?
Yes, I do.
If somebody gets a bit...
if you drop the magic word sometimes, if you do it...
Abracadabra.
Close, but doesn't start with A. If you drop the magic word, we dump you, and I say, "Malcolm, you've let yourself down, you've let the listeners down, and
You've let your mother down.
You're never getting on air again."
Oh, that's that old... oh, gosh, who said that? You've let your mother down, you've let your father down, you've let the country down. You've said one of those very depressing get out
And
things.
I always like it, because when they start off, they're always all enthusiastic, and they lead you down a path, and you can see it coming, and you go, "Malcolm, I'm going to be very careful about what you're about to say. I know it's coming."
Yes.
And then you do it.
Is it in the tone of the voice, is it?
It is. You can just tell. They lead you, because they think they're being clever. I've heard it all before.
Yeah.
But you go down that path, and you go, "Gone."
Yeah, yeah. And suddenly you're talking and they aren't.
Yes. Listeners are lovely. They really are. It's been one of the great joys for me, is to go, I see people. Today I was with somebody who goes, "I love listening to you on the radio." And so you've got a lovely voice for radio. And I go, "You're really listening to me?" Because we all hear our voices differently, don't we? You know that.
Well, that's true. Well,
Yeah.
yes, I'm so used to hearing mine because I never shut up.
Yeah.
But it is different. When you first start hearing your voice, it's not the same. And also on air, of course, you've got a, what is it, a 3-second delay or?
Yeah, 7-second delay.
Or 7.
Yeah.
Oh, you got plenty of time.
You've got plenty of time to cut that word out.
Yes. Great. Well, that's part of technology now, I suppose. But you obviously enjoy that. What about the podcasts?
I put a lot of audio up on, online at Richard on Radio, and I've got Talk Tech with Richard Pascoe as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, just interviews or segments that I've done. because sometimes I'll answer questions and people go, oh, I'm supposed to do what? And then they go to the audio afterwards and they can go along and hear it, which always helps people.
Right. Well, I guess that's what you really need if you're confused and unsure about how to do that. Because with so many opportunities now to find out, sometimes it's really hard that you've got to read so much. Like if you Google something, you've got to read so much. And unless you've got two screens, you're trying to work out, how do I fix my computer? Oh, if you've got the second screen, great. But if you haven't, you're jumping between screens and can very easily lose where you're up to.
I mean, I got into this because I think I explain things clearly and in a concise manner. You know, there's no waffle around it.
Well, the other thing is, so often you get an expert in or somebody explains it and they're, yep, right, it's good now. What did you do?
They're off. They run out the door.
What did you do? What did you do?
After they've been paid, and that's the last you see.
How do I know how to fix that for myself?
So I'm a bit different. I don't shut up. If I come to see you, I go, you shouldn't have done that, or you should have done that. You should have, you should do that. This is what happened, and this is where you got into trouble, Malcolm, for it.
But don't you think the real problem is everybody learns things at a different rate? You know?
They do.
And in a way, if you haven't done it, you'll never learn how to do it, sort of thing. So having somebody to stand over your shoulder a bit to say, you do this, okay, but you do it, not me. That's how I've helped the few people I've managed to help with my limited knowledge. Okay, so going backwards a bit, when did you start doing this? Because technology, as we know it now, has been around, well, obviously for about 40 years or something now, frighteningly.
Back in the dim, dark days of Windows 3.1.
What was that called? I've forgotten now. The program.
DOS.
DOS, of course.
Don't ask me anything about DOS now. I've got no idea. All gone. Can't remember.
Yes, and that's the truth. Everything's turning over so quickly.
It is.
The information is, the way things are done are changing. But because it changes, because if you're young, the beauty of being young is that you're learning this as we would have learnt to read or add up. I'm always amazed when people are amazed when we can add up in our heads and they need to get the phone out now or a calculator.
Kids today got no idea when it comes to change.
I'm just asking the kids on the crew, what do you all use? Do you use a calculator or do you add up in your head? Or head? Good.
There we go.
Good. Camera two's in her head.
Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. So if we go, the big test, Malcolm, is going along and saying, you've paid $36 for something and we give you $50. How much change do you get?
Oh, I'd like $30, thanks.
Exactly right. If you talk to them at the same time, you always get more money back. So yes.
No, I know that feeling very well. No, it's interesting because I suppose the way we learnt to add up is now the way people are learning to do the different steps as technology is constantly changing. So that's in the headspace rather than the simple things like spelling and arithmetic.
Yeah, they know how to turn a device on and some of the basics on there, but I still think the education system today does a very poor job at educating people around what they should do. And that's one of the reasons why I got into this.
Right. But how did you get into it? Was it just a hobby that you've taught yourself?
It was a bit of a hobby, and I did courses and things.
Right.
And I always remember I went to one course after I'd been on radio, I think for a year, and teachers coming along, and he came up to me and said, "What are you doing here?" And I went, thought I'd come and see if I could learn something. He goes, "No, we'll give you your money back, but can you go and help that woman there for me, please?" And then on the way out.
Is it a state of mind, do you think? Do you think you've got that sort of brain, that technical brain?
I do, and I'm not patting myself on the back. I think I understand.
Oh, your arms aren't long enough.
Yeah, I know, that's true. I think I understand how it works.
Yeah.
And I think, so you come to me with a problem and I'll go, you did that, and that. I pretty well know what you've done.
Yes, but here's the big question. How does a little box like this big remember so much? Tell me how that works.
It's all got to do with circuits and everything like that, Malcolm, and chips that we've got. They're getting quicker and faster and smaller. We've never
I know that, but how on earth does it stay on that little thing, that little chip? That's what I want to know.
It's too hard a question, Malcolm.
I know. I know. So let's ask you something that's straightforward.
Right.
So One of the biggest issues, particularly for people in my age range and probably yours if they're not tech savvy, is what's been happening lately with all the scams and the phishing and stuff that's going on. Spelled PH, not F.
It's an epidemic. And when you do get scammed, you've got to get somebody in like me to come along and give you a clean bill of health afterwards. So I go along and I talk to you and, you know, say, how do we get here, Malcolm, for when we've gone along and been scammed on there? And banks will shut all your accounts down. I mean, I talked to a woman today and I'm going to see her on tomorrow afternoon. $32,000 she's lost so far.
Yeah.
And she's devastated by it, but everything's been shut down. And, you know, we've got to find out why.
Why? Is the problem that the government has let too much into the country, do you think? Like the opportunities for people to be ringing us from a foreign country, but a local phone number comes up and then you hear that gap. For example, this is on the phone, you hear that gap and you know this is going to be somebody who's going to be trying to push me for something.
It's a legal thing in Australia that they can mask numbers. ACMA understand that. So what happens if you've got a business, you've got a call centre overseas, so they allow you to mask that number because you're not going to go along and answer the phone call if it comes in from call centre Stan.
Not from Russia, perhaps.
Yes, not from Russia. I always like to call it call centre Stan, which is that fictitious country where all the call centres are.
Yep.
So it masks that number.
Yep.
And
well, you know pretty much if there's that gap. But look, we'll be back in a moment because we're talking to Richard about some of the other things that you really need to know if you're using any technology at all. And guess what? We can't survive without it anymore. We'll be back in a tick. We're back talking with Richard about some of the scams, first of all, that can affect your life coming in via your mobile phone or your computer, or what else? How else are people scamming at the moment?
Emails, phone calls, text messages.
Let's talk about the text messages to start with.
Australians answer and respond to 85% of all text messages. We have to stop doing it. There's a problem with your bank and they go along and press that button, goes through to a fake website and they're away.
Then they've got you.
Then they've got you. So what happens is that it's why I'm a big, I love you banking on your phone. You've got the apps on your phone. Most phones out there are very, very secure. So you can go along, do your banking on your phone. You should feel quite confident about doing it.
Right.
But what happens is that if you get the text message that says there's a problem with your account from a bank, you go to your phone. Right, don't worry about the text message.
Ignore the text message.
Ignore the text. Go to your phone. Go to the banking app. Can you open it? You can open it. Happy days.
Yep.
Check then.
Check to see if there's anything odd.
Yeah. Yep. Have you transferred $1,200 to Julie Smith in Los Angeles?
I don't know Julie Smith in Los Angeles.
No.
Exactly. But also, if the bank really wanted to contact you, they can contact you through the app.
They'll put all the notes, everything's there for you.
There's something there for you.
So, you know, it's and if you still feel worried after that, ring the bank security department.
Yeah.
But be willing, you're going to have to stay on hold for probably about 3 hours before they answer it.
And hopefully you won't be diverted via India.
Exactly right.
Yes. Okay. So that's phone, but that's the worst thing on the phones, isn't it? Those phony text messages. Oh, and also saying a parcel has arrived, but you weren't there to collect it. Hit on this tab, and you think, but I didn't order 3 blind mice and a...
It doesn't matter, but I get literally, I've had people over the years go, I say, Malcolm, were you expecting a parcel? And you go, no, but I was hoping somebody might send me one.
No.
So they open.
No,
but we know, Malcolm, how parcels come.
Yes.
Is it coming from Amazon? Is it coming from Australia Post? When we order it, we know how it comes.
Yeah.
We don't have to install another app on our phone for that.
No. So it's be warned with the phone.
Yes.
So let's now talk about the computer, because that's just open to the world, really, isn't it?
It is, but it's probably never been a better time to own a computer.
Oh, true.
I think as far as security is concerned, we're better off than we were, let's say, 5 years ago.
Yep.
Windows 10 and 11, very, very good operating system.
Well, that's an interesting question too. Do we need protectors like a Norton or the antivirus protectors? Do we need those?
I'm going to give you a bit of a caveat here about this. You're the security experts out there. And people go, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. If you don't keep the computer up to date, that's your fault.
Yep.
If you go to unsafe websites, that's your fault.
Yep.
If you click a link in an email, that's your fault. Can the antivirus prevent you clicking a link in an email or going to an unsafe website? No, it can't. We can't protect stupidity.
Right.
Don't take that the wrong way, people.
No.
But it's
No, but I actually remember what you said before. Click on the actual email address and see if that looks like it's something you know.
If you've got a bill in from AGL, right, it looks a bit, it might look legitimate, but go to the address at the top. If it's on your phone, if you click on it, it shows you the full email address.
Right.
It's a very good thing. And if it's not agl.com.au, you can just leave it.
But if it's got RE or another something
it's not
at the end,
AGL.
it's not them.
Yeah. And there are so many fake invoices coming out at the moment for anybody in business.
Yep. That's very true. And so often those fake invoices just go through to an accounts department who don't know what was ordered and pay it. It makes you wonder just how much money is being scammed so simply.
Well, I think, we've got figures being put out by the government all the time about how much is being scammed. And I think that's about 10% of what's actually being scammed.
Probably
because people,
if
you're embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I always say, look, Malcolm, I need you to go along and tell your friends that you've been scammed. I go, no, I'm never doing that, Richard.
Oh, no. I mean, if somebody had told you before, you may not have got scammed. So spread the word.
Spread the word. You should.
It's like somebody coming and knocking at your front door. If you have the little peephole, you'd look through and say, I don't know who that is. You wouldn't necessarily open the door. And that's a sort of simple analogy, but that's really what it is.
I mean, the phone calls, remote access scams are probably one of the worst ones on there.
Explain that.
So you get a phone call saying, Malcolm, you're infecting all the local neighbourhood on there. I'm from Microsoft.
Oh, right.
We've noticed that. Can we log on to your computer and go along and fix things? Or we're from the NBN.
Yeah.
We need to log on to your computer just to make sure that the upgrade for the area is working correctly.
Nobody needs to do that.
No, you don't. And if you don't know them, you don't let them log on. But people do.
Yep.
And that's where the trouble starts. Because, Malcolm, noticed a bit of a problem with your banking. We can help you with this. And then just watch all your money just slowly disappear.
As has happened to so many. The same as so many of the dating sites, the apps for dating.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you've got to do your homework on those. Romance scams in Australia are at an all-time high.
Yep.
And, it takes, it's a thing
Well,
that...
lonely people need companionship.
Yes.
And they're finding this ghost companionship, if you like.
Yep.
You don't really know who you're talking to. The photo may not be correct.
Photos, what you should do with photos is that you copy the photo and you drag it into Google Images and you see if it comes up on any other websites.
Now that's really good. Not that I've been dating online, but for anybody that is, that's really good advice. I never even thought to do that.
I've helped so many people do that.
What a simple thing.
Yeah. Because you know what? Sometimes you go on, I'm sure the listeners and viewers wouldn't do that, but sometimes you go on those dating websites, let's say 11 o'clock at night, you might have had a couple on the way and then things go off the rails.
But what a simple solution to being sure.
Yeah.
And of course, there are all those emails from the African princes that are desperate to get out.
They are.
I don't know why I keep getting those, but I get them quite often.
Well, you've inherited $300 million, Malcolm.
Yes. Exactly.
All you have to do is respond.
Yes, all I have to do is respond. They're not even asking for my money at this point. Okay, what other things should we be watching for that's coming in technically these days?
MyGov scams. The MyGov scam is going to be in the news a lot coming up. Mm-hmm. So you make sure that all your security settings are tied down, especially for any online account.
So how do we do that? How do we tie down as security settings?
2 email addresses, your normal one and a recovery one. Also, multi-factor authentication, which means that you give somebody like Microsoft, Apple, Google, your mobile phone number. Mm-hmm. What happens is then they've got it, they send a code to your phone.
They send you a code, yes.
then what happens is the people in call centre, Stan, if they guess your password, they will try and log onto your account. You will get a code back in from Google or Microsoft and if that appears on there, they can't get into your account without that number that's on your phone.
But usually that's sent to whichever device you're not using. Is that
no? It's sent to your mobile phone.
Oh, always to a mobile.
Always to your mobile phone.
But then you have to click on a number or something.
Once that number's into that number right? So they can't get in without that number. So they might know your password, but once you've got along and turned it on, they can't get in without that number.
Right. So that's really like your bank details if you're using a credit card.
Yes.
Until you put that 3-digit number in.
That's it. Won't work.
Yeah. Okay. So the protection is there, but you've just got to be...
We need to do it.
Yes. You've
got
to read things.
Yes.
And not be in too much of a rush.
Yeah.
And make sure that you absolutely understand what you're doing.
I always get people who go, I don't want to give my mobile phone number out because they're going to sell it off, Richard. No, they're not. They're the ones that are trying to keep you protected.
Right.
That's what we want. But unfortunately, we get people who go down to, let's say, a local takeaway, 7-day trial membership on for a gym. They write their mobile phone number down. I've got more problems with that being spread around than I do with Google, Microsoft and the like getting it.
Right. Yes, that's interesting, isn't it? So is there sort of just a set of rules we should always look for? Like, is there 5 dot points or 3 dot points to be safe? What should we...
Computers should be kept up to date.
And how do we do that?
You open it, if you're on a Windows computer, you go to Windows Update and Settings and make sure that all your updates are done in settings.
So just get your menu up if you're not sure.
Yep. So Windows updates must be done. Apple computer, make sure you do your updates on that. Mm-hmm. That's the first line of defense.
Because they don't update automatically.
Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they send you a message to update, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah. So make sure that you do all of those.
Yep.
Turn on multi-factor authentication on all your accounts.
So where would we find that?
So in your security settings on there. So Google will ask you for it.
Right.
But if you keep turning it down,
yep,
eventually they shut your account down until you've got along and done it.
Right.
And Microsoft are exactly the same way.
Yep.
They all want you to turn this on now to keep you protected.
Yep.
So look at all the email addresses that you get. It's very, very important that you do that. Make sure you don't respond back.
Just double check that because you get a lot of advertising emails as well, and if you usually scroll down to the bottom, you can deregister yourself if you.
Not a big fan of people unsubscribing.
You're not a big fan of that?
No, because what happens is
hang on, don't tell us that. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to find the answer to that in just a moment. We have a very important question to answer, which is, should we delete the email, delete the addresses of the emails or send back, what am I trying to say, Richard?
Unsubscribe.
Unsubscribe.
Should we unsubscribe, Malcolm? In a lot of cases, no.
Why not?
Because we're standing there going, hi, it's me.
Right.
Can you send me some more crap?
What if we're getting more?
Worst case scenario is you go to Gmail, who take care of all your spam on there. Open up on Google Chrome and it does a wonderful job.
Of getting rid of all the
rubbish. But spam is something we have to live with. We have to be more educated about it.
So much.
Yes.
So if people have got a problem, if you live in Adelaide, it's easy because you can listen to you on radio or you can actually ring you up or email you and find out information.
That's it, at adelaidetechguide.com.au.
There you go. And you're on radio at the weekends mostly?
A lot of weekends I'm on. Football season cuts back a bit, but you can hear me on 5AA every Wednesday afternoon and then occasional weekends.
And you can ring up and say rude things to you and not hear yourself on radio.
Exactly right.
Because you'll be dumped.
I'll cut you off.
The power.
That's it.
The power. Richard, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Malcolm.
It's great. Hopefully that's helped you a little bit just to understand how simple it is to be safe. But always read things properly first.
Sounds a good idea.
So until next time on Our Time, keep yourself nice till then. Bye.